Hello, my name's Paul. I'm the accidental bookseller. Welcome to the channel. I've seen this topic crop up a few times over the last month on Booktube. I thought I'd have a go myself. It's 5 of the hardest reads in my collection. The limiter that I've put on it is that I must have finished the books, and I haven't selected books that I found boring, that I couldn't get into because the plot was naff, for want of a better word. I felt that was a topic that is perhaps subjective. Just because I found something boring doesn't mean to say anyone else does. Another rule that I placed on this was that I must have finished the book. There's only 3 books in my life that I've DNF'd. One of them was because I found it a bit boring, but I simply applied the rule, I must have finished the book. Even though this technically isn't a tag video, I have tagged some people because I genuinely like to know what other people have struggled with. So let's start, and you'll get to know what I mean by books that I found hard. Principally, it's structurally, or the grammar, or the language, or something to do with that I really struggled with. The first book I've chosen is Wolfhall by Hilary Mantel. I struggled mightily with this book. It's a difficult read, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm the only one who thinks this as well. And it's mainly to do with the tense and the word structure throughout the book. It's written from the viewpoint of Thomas Cromwell, as if in the present tense he's seeing things and doing things, but it's using he rather than I, and quite often the speech marks to indicate a conversation. Typically you'll have speech mark paragraphs for one person speaking, but this mixes it up and it doesn't follow that rule some of the time, and it's just very bitty and hard to concentrate as a result, and you never get to truly feel immersed in the book. You're looking outwardly at the language before you actually take in the plot, whereas normally you'll read a book and you'll zip along and the plot will be quite natural and it go into your brain. Your brain is kind of deciphering at times, well, not just at times, a lot of the time, your brain is deciphering these, the speech marks, the tense, and just the general flow of the book. And I got through it, and I have got the other 2 books, but I'd need persuading to read the other 2 books. I will get to them eventually. I say eventually, there's a lot of books that I've got to read, but I do want to read them just to finish off the trilogy. But I found it a real struggle. The second book pains me to include it, but I'm going to have to include it, and it's Chris Packham's Fingers in the Sparkle Jar. For those who aren't in the UK, he's a BBC wildlife presenter, presents predominantly Spring Watch and a number of other things as well. Very well known for his stance against things like fox hunting. His heart's in the right place on so many different issues. He's got an absolutely massive, widespread musical taste. His primary interest musically match my own bands that I like. It's just a really pleasant guy that I like a lot when I watch him, but to read this book, it's a difficult read. It's split up predominantly in 2 parts. It's not part A and a part B chronologically. It flits between his story of his life and his love of nature. The bit about his life is very readable. Punctuation is okay and it flows quite well. But when he's talking about his love of nature, it is so flowery, so purple prosed, and it can go 12, 13, 14 lines without a full stop, and it's difficult to read. And it doesn't just happen once or twice, it's throughout the book. So you kind of, you're looking forward to reading the bits about his life, and then when it gets to the flowery language about nature, and he might be describing a kestrel on the air or something like that. It's just really difficult to concentrate, and on the nature sentences, the 12-liners, the 13-liners, you're concentrating on sort of separating out different lines within the sentence, and maybe where should a comma go, and just trying to decipher what it's meaning, and just understanding it all is just a real chore. It's just difficult. I finished it. I was glad I finished it, but I was glad I finished it, because it would have been a pleasant read, but it was a challenge, and I was glad that I'd finished it because of the challenge. I would imagine quite a few people might DNF it, although when it first come out, people were, I wouldn't say raving about it, but it was being mentioned quite a bit as a readable, enjoyable book. I found it difficult though. So that's Chris Packham, Fingers in the Sparkle Jar. And on a similar note, and if you take what I've said about Chris Packham, the Chris Packham book, and multiply it by 10, you get Thomas de Quincey's Confessions of an English Opium Eater. This is a thin book. It's only about 150, 200-ish. It's difficult though. This is a book where each page took me perhaps 10, 15, 20 minutes at times to get through each page, simply because there's virtually no decent punctuation of sorts. It's just line after line after line of no full stops, and a lack of commas, not separating out the different lines within a sentence, and sentences can be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, many lines within a sentence, and you're constantly trying to break down the sentence to understand it, and your brain is completely outside the scope of the book, which isn't particularly interesting anyway. How it became a classic, I've no idea, because I can't honestly see any merits to the book whatsoever. Is it interesting from a point of view of an outsider looking into the confessions of an opium eater? Not really. Not really. Thomas de Quincey goes up to Wales, travelling about a bit. Could I tell you what else goes on in it? Not really. I spent 200 pages just trying to get to the end of the book. I was absolutely determined not to DNF it. It was so difficult to read. In my opinion, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever on this earth why you would want to read this book or suffer the displeasure of reading it. It's just easily the most difficult book I've ever read in my life from a punctuation and structure point of view. Maybe during the time that it was written, which was late 18th century. I think he was born in 1785, it says here in the introduction. I think that's what it's referring to. But there's books in the late 18th century where it's a lot more structured and understandable than this, and you'd have thought someone would have got hold of it and said, let's try and make it a bit more readable. But no, it's just a really, really difficult read. The fourth book that I've chosen as one of my hardest in my collection is the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson. I mentioned this before in one of the tag videos that I did. And this is a book that was written in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, 75. And it's as it says, a trilogy. You can get them as 3 separate books. And it's a difficult one to grasp because you feel that it was written in an age of the hippie movement of the late 60s, early 70s, even though it says 1975. So that's the trilogy. So I don't know when each individual book was published before that. I got to the end of this, page 800 and something. And I'll be honest, after 800 pages, I was as clueless about what it was about as when I started on page 1. It's not impenetrable in a Thomas de Quincey type way. You just get the feeling that you perhaps need to have consumed various pharmaceuticals to actually understand it. It feels quite a druggy book from the period of late 60s, early 70s, San Francisco flowery culture. It also refers to things in culture, or where I think it's referring to things in culture because it's referring to things that I just don't know. And I'm wondering whether, so say for example, today you're writing a book and you're mentioning the topics of the day. So let's say you're mentioning the Epstein case, or you're mentioning a particular NFL player that's got arrested for something or other. Topics of the day. And then in 40 or 50 years' time, you're reading the book, and so you're reading about those topics of the day from 40, 50 years ago, and you don't know what they are. So not that they're central to the book, but references to events that I probably need to know more about to get a full capacity of understanding of the novel. I can read page after page after page of this, and I just don't know what it's about. It was a deadly mistake. I'll read the back of it. It was a deadly mistake. Joseph Malik, editor of a radical magazine, had snooped into rumours about an ancient secret society that was still alive and kicking. Now his offices have been bombed, he's missing, and the case has landed in the lap of a tough, cynical, streetwise New York detective. Saul Goodman knows he's stumbled onto something big, but even he can't guess how far into the pinnacles of power this conspiracy of evil has penetrated. Filled with sex and violence, I don't know. I've read a lot worse. In and Out of Time and Space, the 3 books of the Illuminatus trilogy are only partly works of the imagination. They tackle all the cover-ups of our time, from who really shot the Kennedys to why there's a pyramid on a $1 bill, and suggest a mind-blowing truth. So you see, it's referring to cultural items. Some of them you know about, but some of them you don't know about because they were stories of the day. But it's really, really tough to understand and connect all that is being told. And yes, they may be weaving a tale where they're connecting all these cultural things, but like I say, I was as clueless at the end as I was at the beginning. And you can read 10 to 20 pages at a time, and it's really frustrating because you're using half an hour, 45 minutes of your life each time you read those 10, 20 pages, and you feel like you're wasting your time, and you're not going to understand the next 10, 20 pages or the next 100 pages, and you just go on and on and on reading it, and you're just clueless by the end and throughout. So in that respect, it's a hard book. Before I get on to book 5, I thought I'd give some honourable mentions to books that there's nothing really wrong with them structurally, but I just find them a struggle because they just were, for want of a better word, boring. There's one particular book by Algis Budrys, who's a science fiction author. Can't remember the name, couldn't find the book, but the name Algis Budrys does ring in me brain every time I see his name as this particular science fiction book club book that I've got. And when I see Algis Budrys on other book hauls of vintage science fiction, it's not that I go into cold sweats, but I couldn't take to him at all. And then the other one is, even though I really like Thomas Hardy and Far From the Madding Crowd and The Mayor of Casterbridge are in my all-time top tens, Under the Greenwood Tree, oh my God, that was a tricky read. It was just page after page after page of descriptive stuff, which Thomas Hardy is famous for. But I've come to realise that those are great when within the context of a maybe a tragic novel or a novel that's going somewhere. Under the Greenwood Tree never really goes anywhere. There's no particular big drama involved in the book. And if you're just reading page after page after page of that Thomas Hardy-ness with no respite, it becomes a bit of a chore. So it's hard to read in that respect. There might be other people who don't feel as strongly as me about it. So I've not mentioned it within the 5 because there's nothing really structurally wrong. Now, number 5, where I really didn't take to it, House of Leaves, Mark Danielewski. Something of a cult book. And there's a video by it's a guy called Josh Reads Books, and he did a video for, I think it was 5 or 6 books that he believes people lie about reading. They say they've read it when they haven't. And I don't think this was mentioned, but if I was doing that same video, the House of Leaves would land in my selections, because I've seen it on various booktubers' shelves. No one ever really mentions it much, and my perception is I reckon people have got it, but they don't read it. Some people do. It is a favourite of some. When I mentioned it on my, I think it was the horror book tag that I mentioned it in as it might have been an overrated book question. And someone messaged me or wrote a comment, say that they'd read it 4 times. So it does have its fans, but let me explain. It's dead odd and deliberately odd, where some pages you might have just like 1 word or 2 words, or you might have something just written at the bottom, or it's structured like that, or even at angles. Gregory Maguire, author of Wicked, wrote, House of Leaves actually gave me nightmares. I had to stop reading it before bedtime. I'm sure klaxons will be set blaring around it and lights will be trained on it. And so they should. Its secrets are rich and obscure. Danielewski's textured novel is about apprehensions in all senses of the word, to anticipate with dread, to seize, to understand. If you can imagine that Peter Pan's enemy is not Captain Hook but Neverland itself, or that the whale that swallows Jonah is Moby Dick, you'll begin to appreciate what this book is about. Anticipate it with dread, seize, and understand. Anticipate it with dread, seize, and understand. A riveting reading experience. I honestly think riveting is a phrase far removed from how you describe this. Another book where by the end I'm completely confused as to what's going on. I've no idea what the book's about. It just jumps from one thing to the next, and structurally it tries to be far too clever for its own good, and it's just difficult. I mean, it's easy to read in terms of the sentences and the, you know, when somebody's talking, that's all structured, I'll say properly. Properly is probably the wrong word, but structured in the way everyone would understand. Another one there, it's kind of like a play. Like I say, it has its fans, but I think there's quite a few people who have it on its shelves as a to read item and then never read it. Just my opinion, could be wrong. I'm not convinced that I am to a great degree though. I don't see people raving about it that have read it, except for the odd one or two who, like I say, one chat messaged me, he'd read it 4 times. So yeah, it may have its fans, but I'm not one of them, I'm sorry. So those are my 5 difficult reads, 5 hard reads that are in my collection. In the grand scheme of things, they're not hard in terms of trying to decipher Greek philosophy or something like that, but structurally, it just ruins the enjoyment of the book, in my opinion. But I do stress it's my opinion. Which books do you struggle with? Are they popular ones that you just can't take to because of something structurally that's odd about them? If I've tagged you, it'd be great to see your video. And even if I haven't tagged you, if you just see this video on Booktube and you fancy having a go, by all means do. Copy me in, because I'd be fascinated to know the answers to what you think's difficult as well. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Very much appreciate it. And if you click like, click subscribe, that would help me out tremendously. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.